Good afternoon. It is Monday, August the 14th, a little after 5 p.m. This is meteorologist Shay Gibson with SailFlow bringing you a first preliminary forecast or preliminary outlook and some information about how the forecasting is going to roll for the Inland Lake Yacht Association race, championship race at Lake Geneva starting Wednesday. So we'll be doing this every day of the race, Wednesday through Sunday, to be determined on the time with the webinars that we're going to do. Those will be done through Zoom. We'll be passing the link out. And so to be determined on Wednesday because that's an afternoon course. But on Thursday through Sunday, they're going to be early morning webinars that we're going to do live, where you can tune in live, or you can even watch it afterwards if you missed the first showing of it. And you can ask Q&A. We have a Q&A section where you can ask questions as we go through each of those webinars. So today and tomorrow, I'm going to be just doing these YouTube links, right, just to kind of get a preliminary look at how things are going to go. So real quick, I want to go ahead and just put myself in the corner. Splash page for our slide deck is going to be here. We'll have a couple more slides to go through each morning through the webinars, just some basic information, housekeeping rules, whatnot, and then we'll be definitely covering the course throughout each day. Big shout out to Boaters Closet, who is the main sponsor for the weather forecasting for this race event. So we appreciate partnering with you, Boaters Closet, from us at SailFlow, and hopefully this will be a great event for everybody. The weather looks pretty good, actually. There might be one questionable day on Friday, but we'll get into that in just a second. Want to go right to the website for the Lake Geneva Yacht Club. And if you click on the 2023 Inland Championship, this will give you all the information you need to know. That is, if you haven't registered or you're looking at which races are going to be what times and some of the social events as well. So make sure to click there. And if you have any volunteering capability, please do that as well. Let's go ahead and dive into what's going on regionally in the area. We have an upper low, so you have some rain over the area right now. It's going to be tapering off, but this upper low is going to be exiting to the east, and then we're going to have a cold front that's going to be approaching. But right now, you can kind of see what's going on in the area. If we go to sub-regional and zero down, yeah, quite a bit of rainfall wrapping around. So these winds are kind of wrapping from the northeast and the north around it. We see at the upper level winds, you can definitely see the mid-level winds where it's wrapping around from the north, and that's going to continue to be the wind for today, and then possibly even into tomorrow. We'll talk about Wednesday. I definitely want to bring the surface map up, the WPC surface map, the Weather Prediction Center, and this is what's going to be guiding a lot. I'm going to be using this map a lot for this race, simply because it has a pretty good beat on it. There's no reason to run a GFS model off of something. This is going to be basically an aggregate of a few different models. This is a good go-to for a lot of different areas that I use. And so if we just go forward in time, we see that low exiting. We get high pressure working down, that northerly flow through tomorrow. It may taper off in the afternoon. And then as we get into Wednesday, this is going to become more thematic with this ridge to our south. So this high pressure right here is going to be bringing the winds up from the southwest across the area. So if you know about high pressure ridges, the winds are always going clockwise around them. So that is what's to be expected on Wednesday. So if we look at the weather stations in the area, so this is one point I want to cover with weather stations is that we know Lake Michigan, we have our ProNet stations in the area. These are the ones in yellow. Everything in white is public domain. So I might be using the lake for some of this for actual reference points for the winds, but we do know that the area over Lake Geneva, there's topographical features, there's trees, there's all kinds of things that sort of block the wind, so you won't get a very clean fetch like you would out in the middle of Lake Michigan here. But that does not mean that out in the center you can't get a pretty good fetch that's working down. What this means is that I'm going to be using a few points of data here off of our Tempest weather stations. There is one public station right here that's a little choppy, but we do see some of these Tempest stations that are in the area don't do too bad with certain directions. And so I've been watching this for the last week or two, and it's not going to be the most consistent. A lot of times you see that winds royal. If they're coming from the west or the southwest, it may take out to about the middle of the lake before the winds settle down. So on that direction of wind, I would assume the race rings are going to be a little bit more north up in the bay, in Williams Bay. And then anything else, if we get northerly winds, of course, like right now, the southern portion of Geneva Lake would be a little bit more favorable for the race rings. So the race rings, they're going to be switching. They're going to be shifting as we go through the forecast each day. and they'll be placing the markers according to what the winds are going to be doing. So I will be watching these tempest sensors in the area. I'll be watching all of them. We don't have anything that's a real hard line station out over the water, so it just makes for a little bit of forecast challenges. I'm sure many of you are aware. So I'll just be probably picking Lackey Lane for the point of reference in the modeling, simply because it's a central point. So the tempest stations, if you have never seen them before, this is what they look like, and they're basically self-contained units with solar panels, no moving parts, and they're machine learning, so they do get some pretty good fetch. They're not going to be as true as an anemometer with a wind vane right off the bat until the machine learns and picks up on the other ones. But they are very effective, especially if you get one out on a dock over the water. Anywhere you can get one of these tempest stations is pretty good data. But let's go ahead and go forward with some of the forecast modeling and what it means. So what I like to do is I like to pick SailFlow, and this is a Tempest One app. SailFlow gives you basically the same data. And we select all the models, right? So this is what I like to do for all these races. I select all the models, go out through the day, and start looking and making comparisons. So with a WPC surface map, placing this ridge well to our south, the expanded center of high pressure goes all the way up towards Geneva or Lake Geneva, right? So we know that the gradient won't be as strong as maybe up to the northwest along the northern tier, where the isobars, these little red lines, are stronger or closer together. That means the wind is stronger up there. But as this high slides off, we may end up with a moderate southwest flow as we go through the afternoon on Wednesday. That to be pointed out, that looks like a pretty good day or a pretty good afternoon of sailing for Wednesday. And we look at the model values. It shows up towards 10 knots, west-southwest, backing southwest through the afternoon. And we just have to be careful on what the model outputs show, and we'll exact this a little bit more tomorrow and into Wednesday as we go forward in time. So just know that after about 2 to 3 days, the margin of error grows even wider. So keep that in mind going forward as I do these preliminary. This is not an actual forecast of the day; it's a preliminary forecast, and we'll zero in on it each day as we go through. All right. So as we get into Thursday, then things start to get a little shifty from the west, right? So that's because this cold front that's dropping down into Thursday will be pushing through, and then we get a ridge, another high area of high pressure building out to our west. That's going to drive down a northwest flow or a westerly flow right behind the front. And so that will be one of the players for it as we go forward as we get into Thursday. And once that front goes through into Friday, we start to see the winds really coming down. We get a lull in the winds because we're right nearly under the center of that ridge that's moving in behind the front. So Friday looks to be a little bit of a tricky day with light winds. As we get into Saturday, the ridge moves off to the east. We get a return southerly flow or southwesterly flow up behind it with a light to modest gradient. So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of frontal activity or troughing across the area that it can build into. If we had troughing right here, we'd have a tighter pressure gradient building in. And so we'll be watching I'm going to be watching this prefrontal zone. This warm front's going to be lifting, this front's going to be coming in, and then that high pressure is going to be moving off to the east. And what I think is going to happen is that this front's going to come and lay down right across to our north and get caught in between these two ridges. So if we go forward in time, exactly that happens. We have this ridge parked up here. We have this one parked here. This front stalls. So we don't have to worry about anything from this front as we get into Sunday. It looks like it's going to be probably another southwesterly, maybe even westerly day. If this front comes down a little farther, this high drags off to the east, then we end up with more of a westerly zonal flow right below that front. But it does look dry. And that being said, even if we get into Thursday, if we back up a couple of days, it looks like there might be a little shot of rain ahead of this front. This front's going to be drying out, and so I don't see a lot of moisture being pulled. It's not making connection to the Gulf of Mexico or even over to the Pacific. It sort of dries out over this area. So if we look at the WPC quantitative forecast for day 3, we only see about a trace of rain. They're really over Lake Geneva area, very late, maybe 0.10 for a brief period of time early in the morning. If we look at GFS going forward, we see just a smidgen along that front. Thursday morning, this says 12Z, so we can assume that's 8 a.m. That'd be 7 a.m. Central Time. And then it's out of here, and then things improve through the day. So we probably get sunshine back after a few clouds. So that's the only day that I see a threat of rain at all And then behind that, we end up with a decent little wind too. So I don't want to get too far ahead in time. That's pretty much what's going to happen. Temperatures look pretty comfortable. If you look at the Kenosha Regional Airport, it looks pretty pleasant. Wednesday through Friday, we're in the low 80s, and we start to climb. Saturday and Sunday gets kind of hot, 86 and 92, with that return southerly flow coming up around that high pressure. So yeah, might get a little bit warm on Sunday, but that could create some thermals over the lake to help with some lake breezing too. So that's always a good thing. So that's going to be a wrap for this preliminary forecast. Like I said, Wednesday we're looking at a modest southwest flow. Thursday, perhaps a somewhat moderate westerly flow. And I'll be talking with David and the others to talk about, what the winds are going to do. We're going to put the circles out in the rings out in the course, and that will do. So if the links for this YouTube will be put out today, they'll be put out again tomorrow. I'll do another one, and we'll be sending that out. Look for the webinar starting on Wednesday, and then join us Thursday mornings as we get started with those as well. All right. Well, everybody, take care. Have a good rest of your afternoon and evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow on the YouTube. Thank you. Bye-bye.